Hi, we are back here in Westport talking to a homeowner in Watercolour, and I'm really happy to be here with you, Stephen, this morning.
So am I, Wafa.
Yeah, I know you know Randall well.
Yes, we do know one another well.
Yeah, I had the privilege of meeting Randall Goodfellow actually in a coffee shop in Ottawa for the first time when he was an owner here but not yet moved into his home, and we had a great conversation, but it started around securing a sweet treat for people who come visit us in the model home. And if you come for a visit, oftentimes you're going to walk away with this delicious bottle of maple syrup, which he harvests from his farm, which is really close by to Watercolour. In fact, about 10 minutes, I think, or 8 minutes by car. We are really happy to have you here with us this morning.
Well, thank you very much. I look forward to our conversation.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. I know that you have some deep roots, obviously, to the area, and you were familiar with Westport long before you moved here. Maybe you can share a little bit of your story of making the transition from Ottawa to Westport.
Yeah, thank you. In my background is the practice of making maple syrup on the home farm down in the eastern townships of Quebec. Okay. My work and life took me away from the eastern townships, and I've lived in Eastern Ontario for quite a period of time in the Ottawa area. I've been wanting to make maple syrup as part of my retirement, semi-retirement. Depends what my wife say. I am either semi-retired or retired. And so about 10, 15 years ago, we purchased a piece of property outside of Westport that had the potential of turning it into a maple syrup operation. We had to start from scratch there and build a building, buy all the equipment. Anyways, so I traveled back and forth, and one trip, something was happening over to one side of the road here, and I said, what is that? And as it became more apparent, I thought, there's some homes there. I've been wanting to get Sharon to move out this way so I wouldn't have to drive so far from Ottawa to the farm out near Fermoy, which is 10 minutes or so, 8 to 10 minutes beyond Westport here. And she's always been very interested, particularly in homes that Landark has built. And actually, we saw some as early as the early 2000s when we actually had a piece of property in rural Ottawa and said, can we maybe get Landark to build one of these for us? But that was not the approach that was at the time. It was like too much of a distraction from the development that was nearby. So she's always said, I'd like to live in a Landark home at some point. So I had the fortunate opportunity to say, oh my gosh, Landark is building in the Westport area, and I'd like Sharon to consider a Westport area. And so
that's
brought
a
her out
beautiful
here.
thing when things just collide like that, just as they're supposed to, isn't that?
Brought her out here.
Yeah, we say that.
And she said, well, I really love this. He says, but I'm not retiring for a few years. And so we said, okay, fine, we'll buy. And we held it for a few years. It was used as the model home. And then we moved in 2 years ago, even though we've owned the house for, I guess, approaching 3.5, 4 years.
Okay. And it's always inspiring for people to see the possibilities and watch the time pass as they wait for them to unfold. So I think there's a beautiful part of that story, that because it's often people will come to the model home years before they're actually ready to make the move, but that planning and purposeful process has to unfold.
And we were at the model home a few weeks ago, and a gentleman who's bought from us from Orleans, Peter, who we'll hopefully be interviewing in a few years, once he gets settled, maybe at least a year. He said the same thing, Randall. 20 years ago, he had been in a Landark Homes model home, probably one of the ones in Vance Farm, and he just remembers how it made him feel, that it was so different. And so when he heard we were starting building in Westport, he came to see us, and now he's a future resident.
That's neat. You'll have a friend with something in common right away.
Whereas Landark wasn't able to build one home out on 42 acres for us, they referred us to the architect that did the work for Landark, and so a number of the items reappeared in the house that we actually did build.
Oh, that's really neat. Yeah, well, it is a timeless classic style that people just feel instantly, comfortable in, which is really nice to see. But I know that you're also a person who makes deep connections wherever you live, and that you contribute to community in really meaningful ways. Yeah, I think we were just sharing earlier that you have your hand in a lot of different things, and you make a lot of small things grow into something bigger and better. Tell me a little bit about how you have started to get a sense of community here in Westport after spending so many years in Ottawa.
Well, part of it was even before we moved here. We were building the maple syrup camp and all this type of thing. So I came into town for various reasons, like getting building supplies. So they've known me for quite a while up the hill here in the building center, and used to eat here and whatever else. I started to get a bit of a flavor for it, and people started to recognize me, which feels good.
Yeah.
And since we've moved here, get involved. Yes, I have as you say, a track record of doing that ever since I was a teenager. My profession was actually and being able to bring people together from very different places and different perceptions and philosophies in life around things that usually led to economic development around science and technology. So I often said, when the kids say to me, "Dad, I don't like to explain what you do to my friends," and because it's not like one of these things, "Oh, he's a banker," even though I was at one point, or an accountant or whatever, because that's a concept of people say, "Oh yeah, I understand that." Right. What I did was I used to say I walk between the worlds, and I translate, and I can work at the 60,000 foot level on the macro policy or the macro idea, and then go and be able to sit at the kitchen table for implementation and back and forth, because the kitchen table should inform the macro, and the macro should respond to what's needed at the kitchen table. So, so moving to Westport, I couldn't help but get involved. Yes. Early on, I went to, even before we arrived here, the mayor has these mayor breakfasts now and again, and she was talking about how the initiatives are really going to move things forward for the village. It shouldn't be run by the village themselves, but should be run by outside organizations to advance various causes. And there's an outside organization working on it was referred to Friends of the Arena, working on the improvements to the arena. And so the mayor approached me, because I guess I must have said too much at a meeting or something, and asked questions, and I knew a bit about economic development, and she says, we'd like to get something going on the tourist here. I mean, more of a tourist. It's not saying Westport isn't a tourist town. Westport's been a tourist town for forever and ever, since the 1880s or earlier. And it's like, okay, let's understand what our assets are here. Let's claim the assets we have. Let's people know about these assets. Let's figure out which ones need to be improved, which ones activities need to be created, and get the world to know Westport more so than what it has been known for in the past, and reach out to a whole different group of people.
As we've been talking about, for people to be inspired to come and move here on this podcast, we often reference the placemaking and how the intentional design of a community, integrating it into an existing village, and trying to raise awareness about the possibilities and the diversity and richness of life that can be experienced here. You have a really deep understanding of that. What are some of the overarching sort of activities or community groups that you feel really make those meaningful connections for the community?
As I said a bit earlier there, the mayor approached about forming some sort of a tourist group. So we actually incorporated as a not-for-profit. Okay. And two of the founding directors who actually incorporate are from Watercolours. And so we have the residents on these several streets here that comprises Watercolours at the present time have brought some new energy into the community organizations, have created some new community organizations, and they brought networks and experiences from other places. So I believe it's enriched Westport for the benefit of all Westportians, if that's what you want to say. So whether they live in a land arc home or whether they live in a traditional village of the 1840s, etc. onward. So.
Yes, because there hadn't been new homes in this village for what I think we've said 100 years. So it was only a little infill projects and maybe renovations, but nothing like the scale of what's happening.
And so you were asking what type of opportunities are
there. What kind of
there's still opportunities in tourism. I'll talk a bit more about that. But there's some things like the Westport Arts Council, which puts on music events, and they also put on summer camps for kids and musical theater and this type of thing. And it was going long before Land Arc exists and the people moved into this development here. But what's happened, it's brought new energy into those, and there's new talents. I mean, some of the one of the people that's running the musical theater group for kids this summer is a resident here. She and her husband are involved in the Orpheus Theater, and so all of a sudden you've got that influence here. And another one in the group is the Westport Blooms, which is to beautify the town in regard to planting trees and lots of
we see
flower
that on our
beds
social media a lot. People will tag Westport with pictures of flowers down the medians and the baskets that hang off of buildings. And
so whereas that group existed, it got a whole bunch of new enthusiastic members. So what I'd like to say is that if you're somebody who says, I'm not just going to retire and do such and not much of anything, but there's not many of those type of people. They go like, no, I want to keep involved in some form or fashion, use some skills, use some energy I have. There's plenty of opportunity here, and constantly trying to recruit people to certain initiatives. So.
That's neat. I know that you were very involved in a new trailhead, and hiking is a big part of your life. You've joined us today in, I think, one of your favorite pair of hiking boots. Both of you are. You've recently enjoyed more hiking too, haven't you, Steve? Yeah.
Oh, I love hiking, and especially my wife. I'm just trying to fill the shoes of my wife's grandmother, who also comes from a long line of hikers, hiking across England, hiking literally all around the world. So I'm very, very blessed to enjoy and be married to a spouse who is much more active than I am hiking. So I'm just learning about the joys of hiking.
Yeah, and you've got your shirt on there that's got a great statement on it. And into the forest I go to lose my mind and find my soul. That's pretty empowering.
Yeah, well, that's me. And my daughter bought it a couple of years ago, and it came from the grandkids. I'm sure they didn't look for it online and order it and everything, but it's the grandkids that gave it to me. So it's really, it encapsulates who I am. Now, I'll go back to the Westport Tourism Group just for a moment, because it's where the hiking initiatives, etc., come out. We did a consultation of the community, the whole community, not just in one part of the community, but the existing tourist operators, the existing businesses, the rest of the population of Westport. And about 2 years ago, year and 3/4, 2 years ago, and they were telling us, like, we have these assets, we have this, we have that. And you know, something really important is we are at the meeting point of 2 UNESCO designated World Heritage Sites. One is the Rideau Canal, which Westport is the western point on the Rideau Canal, and then the Rideau system. And it is also Westport's included in the area called the Frontenac Arch Biosphere, which is a UNESCO biosphere. And so we have great land and attributes, lots of topography, lots of lakes within that topography in the biosphere. And we have the other part, which is, of course, I talked about it, we're the western port of on the Rideau watershed, which makes up the Rideau Canal. And so say, oh, let's really capitalize on it. Why do people want to be here? Well, it's usually one of those two things. Our tourism isn't based because we have the Notre Dame Cathedral here. Come look at a building.
Right.
We're an outdoors tourist area, and it's the main economic driver. Yes, I don't want to minimize the fact that there's farms around the area. Some farms they create economy too. But tourism are a mainstay here for a long period of time. But what type of tourism? We're an outdoor tourism spot. And so to me, there's the water portion and there's the land portion. My portion is the land portion. I'm a landlubber. I can go on the water, but I like being on the land. Yeah. And so it was pushing us in several directions to people around here and said, like, if we created an understanding more broadly of what land resources we have, and which is the trails to access the land, cycling to access the land through the roads, etc. There's a whole community of interested parties, and so the first thing I started on was a focus on hiking. So we actually have a trails committee of the Westport Tourism Group, which are not just the founding members, but community members who, it wasn't hard to find people like trails and hiking. Okay. And we're creating new ones as well in the area, and connecting them up. For example,
how are they contributing? What changes, what difference are they making by getting involved?
Well, we're also the founding spot for the Randall Trail, which goes from Kingston to Ottawa, and the founding plaque here is in Westport, up in Foley Mountain Conservation Area, which overlooks Westport, and so there's always been a trail connection here, and so the Randall Trail, which goes through here, has 325 kilometers from Kingston to Ottawa,
Unbelievable.
And then. Beautiful. And then they also oversee another 125 kilometers of other trails, which predominantly loop off of the Randall Trail and reconnect to it or whatever else. And we have a number of blue trails in this area. One that goes off the Randall Trail out to Old Bob's, which is an outlook, big rock, beautiful up there, overlooking
my
Sand
trail
Lake.
naivety, what is a blue trail?
A blue trail is the ones they look after, but isn't technically the original Randall Trail.
And the Randall trails, they have little orange arrows.
Okay.
And one way they have a little white tag on the end, and that's for going one direction.
Yep.
And the other ones that are just all orange.
So it's not like a ski hill where blue is an intermediate trail and green. Okay,
they could have chose other colors. They could have chose other colors.
No. So the blue trails are sort of auxiliary to the main trail.
Yes, exactly. And they're always being developed because the Randall Trail itself, it's Kingston to Ottawa. People in Kingston always say, well, it's Kingston to Ottawa because really the idea started in Kingston. They're very particular about that. So it's not going to be somewhere else it's going to be Kingston, Ottawa. Now there's revisions along the way because something's washed out or some access to a piece of land is no longer available. Okay. But there's constantly adding blue trails in. And so we're here in Westport are working on adding in another blue trail. Again, there's already one here, which goes off of the Randall Trail out to Old Bob's. They look over Sand Lake. But we're working on one now to connect highway number 10 to highway number 36, just along the northern edge of the Mill Pond here in Westport. So you can actually walk around the whole pond. It allows that to be connected. It also allows that trail to have another branch off of it to go up to Foley Mountain Conservation Area, which improves the desirability to get from people in Westport and the tourists in Westport. They want to go up to Foley Mountain Conservation Area. They have to walk, if they're walking, on the side of a highway. Now this gives us an alternative route to get up there where they can walk up there, and much prettier and much safer. And so that was an initiative of a group of volunteers. Wonderful. And so out there cutting trails, interesting along that one is that there's a waterfall in the midst of it. So at some point along the way, we're going to need to build a bridge. Anyways, these are the things that local folks are now involved in, because you create an idea, but then you have to beef it up. You got to think it through, bring the parties together, and you actually have to do the work thereafter.
Navigate the way to it to get it done. And you're still at the early stages of even that
Oh, not so early.
No, not so early. Okay.
We've got the property owners to agree to it. We've walked the site with them. They're
That's
keen.
Okay.
As well, part of it is the folks that are, like, for example, the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority that oversees the Foley Mountain Conservation Area.
Yes.
Their big selling point, one of the big selling points, they like people to get up there, but they don't want them to walk along the side of a road on a shoulder.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this alternative way of getting there is like, oh, good, thumbs up. Let's figure a way to do this.
Okay.
And maybe I'll jump in here to give you a pause. Having grown up in Oakville, Mississauga, we would hike the Bruce Trail. And the Bruce Trail, my wife and my mother-in-law is an amazingly active woman who at age 60 hiked Kilimanjaro, and she's just always doing these amazing adventures. So learning about hiking through my future wife, I always learned, hikers want to hike in the woods. Hikers don't want to walk along a road if they can avoid it. But invariably, even in parts of the Bruce Trail, when it originated, there were a lot of parts on roads that eventually became, through volunteers, more interconnected through landowners giving permission of, say, a farmer saying, sure, you can, hack a little trail with some snips and just along the edge of a field. And so it was the Bruce Trail evolved. So it is the Rideau Trail evolved. It's all volunteers. And then another group of volunteers come along and add a lot of social connectivity and social input and social capital, whereby then the snips come out and you stop hiking the roads and you're hiking more in a natural, safer environment. So it's the same type of evolution now that the Rideau Trail is having.
And I'll mention about the hiking trails. You're always concerned about not introducing invasive species that don't exist. There's boot brush stations at certain locations, so you knock the seeds off, and they're not able to be spread throughout the area here.
Much like responsible boaters should be washing off the hull of their boat before they
you've got to be
launch it in
concerned
another body
about
of water.
you've got to be concerned about not creating a situation where there's erosion and things. So it's not just hacking a trail. There's a lot of forethought to go into originally making the trail, but also maintaining it, etc. So some people love hiking. Some people love hiking and maintaining trail, and some people say, I really just want to help maintain trails. And so you get the whole gamut of people's interests being able to be met. So,
because trail wardens maintain the Rideau Trail, and they'll adopt a few kilometers
As volunteers?
As volunteers.
Okay,
and so the same with our 9th community, Bedora Farm on Bob's Lake. We had 3.5 kilometers that our land planner, Mark Snyder, laid out. And then we went in with snips and a 4-wheeler just to make sure we could have a maneuverable trail. But then many of the homeowners in that community, there's about 45 of them. Some guys spring and fall are chainsaw guys. Other people will just bring out the blower and they'll blow it to keep the leaves off. And now one gentleman, we have some amazing moss and lichen growing. And it's phenomenal, people's connection to nature and neighbor through hiking and through trail maintenance of all things, or trail creation and establishment.
Here's a volunteer opportunity. I'm always looking for people. I've just become responsible for 2 segments of the Rideau Trail, which is a maintainer, and you do what you need to do. Sometimes you need to cut the grass back so you don't have ticks, etc., and long grass. Sometimes something has fallen down. If, for example, on those areas that you're maintaining, there's something bigger, they can bring a work crew in that they assemble of volunteers from anywhere from Kingston up to here to come in and do some stuff and do the heavier lifting on some things. If it's bridge building or whatever else, that's what happens from a broader trail group assembly. But in the local segments, hey, if I'm responsible for 2 segments of it, I'd love to go out with some other people, just even to walk it and say, oh, there's an issue here, and we're going to need to deal with it. Sort of a bit of an inventory of, what the issues are, what the things to improve are, etc., and then get together and go and do that. So that's an opportunity for people. let's go walk in the wood and also improve the trails and maintain
friendship
the trails.
building. And I think you've seen that happen here even with the Harvest Creek Trail in Watercolour.
Yes.
And you have a plan. Maybe you want to share a little bit about some of the connected trails that you're hoping to integrate into the community.
Yes. Of the 220 acres, there will be about 50 acres that gets preserved. And of that 50 acres, there will be approximately, I just asked the surveyor to add it up because Mark Snyder did a nice little pencil sketch over the winter time. And so it's 10.7 kilometers so far of walking trails. And that way, every year with this fall phase 3 coming to life, there will be another kilometer on Central Common, is maybe the name that Warren would like, or that Randall might think appropriate, but we want to wait and hear what everybody thinks. Because having all of these gathering places, as we learned from another hiking expert, Wafa, you and I were on a Zoom call with an amazing hiker who said every 500 meters you should have a bench or a rest stop.
Something to reflect
and enjoy creation and enjoy nature and the view. And so through various TED Talks, I've learned about a gentleman, Mark Lakeman in Portland, who says gathering places, gathering places, gathering places. How can we create different arches is his thing. So this is what we'll have 7 of these coming to life in phase 3, where you just walk through and you feel that's a portal to a different gathering place. And through one of your neighbors, Kent, I just heard about an initiative of the national parks to have 2 red Muskoka chairs looking out so that people have a clue. Oh, there must be a nice view. I want to hike up to those red chairs. And so a lot of this is going to be trial and error. We learn from our friends and we learn from our social network of residents and community members and people as we're just going along. And I say stumbling and fumbling. Kevin doesn't like that, but I like it because we don't know what we're doing. We're trying to create community and connection. And if we have a different border of more or less, the rock boulders, that will be a continuous theme. But I was just journaling this morning, maybe one of them will be showcasing white pines, to have a gathering place surrounded, because one of the noises I love in nature is the sound of the wind just whispering through the white pines.
Well, have you heard of forest bathing?
Oh yes, very much
so. Pines are very good aerosols and they're good for breathing. And there's a whole bunch of other things related to particular trees or particular wild environments that have positive effects upon people, and there's a whole forest bathing and leaders for that in the area as well. So it's not hokey pokey. There's actually science behind it, and some of the science was developed not far from here, over in Merrickville by Kruger, Beresford Kruger. That's her last name, hyphenated one, and she recently spoke here. She's both a medical person and a botanist, and so medical botany, and she's written many books, well recognized by the United Nations, and so there's some good science behind it as well. Getting outdoors is good for you. Emily always said that.
Absolutely, good for the body and the mind. And as you said, just integrating your
you can lose your mind.
Lose your mind. Just go out there and
find your soul.
Feed your soul. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to give a shout out to the Better Together Circle is another organization of very committed volunteers who are trying to, they put on EcoFest, and through one of their members, Susan, they were bringing in different speakers over the wintertime, and I loved attending a session.
Well, Diana Beresford Kruger was brought in by the Better Together Circle.
Great.
And in one of those presentations, I was learning about the importance of having white oaks, that they're one of those top of the food chain type of trees that should be there for all the bugs, all the flora and the fauna, that they are a king species, that you need to have white oaks. And so some of these things
they've been appreciated for a long period of time in various mythology. And what I mean by mythology is not, some people think, oh, mythology means it's not true, it's not right.
Right.
And it's just a myth. Well, mythology, if one looked it up, or a myth, is the wisdom of people. It's a common wisdom of a group of people. And so white oaks have been, even in the Celtic background, you have as much above ground as you do below ground.
Yeah.
So if the ground's here, the root system resembles what's above ground in the branches. And so there's the yin and yang, there's a whole slew of things like that. Trees represent, and they've always represented that. So.
Yeah, I know, Stephen, you recently gave me a book on trees.
Yes.
And its integration into our human experience and our spiritual experience. And it's interesting you mentioned the oak tree, because in that book they reference the fact that the roots of the tree actually are almost identical to the system of our lungs. And if you look at a cross-section of your lung and how air flows through your body. So I think
we're into trees now.
we are really into trees. Well, Landark has a reforestation and a stewardship status too of planting. I don't know how many trees now you've got in that legacy.
And I'm very fortunate to have grown up with parents who grew up on farms. And my mother, Marion, coming from New Brunswick on a farm, and my father, Stanley, coming from Orangeville, Stayner, Guelph sort of area. And just environmental stewardship was something I grew up with. So when we had a new home, we would plant trees. At our cottage, when we had a cottage off and on, we would plant trees, because just seedlings grow so quickly. And another presentation I was learning from, and it talked about, transplanting people who are older. It's like learning a language. It's hard when we're older, but if you transplant seedlings, we've learned about the Miyawaki forest and how in 2 to 4 years you can have the biodiversity really implemented at all these different layers of trees of something that is very quickly approaching a 200-year-old forest in maybe 5 or 10 years or 20 years. You don't have to wait the 200 years to get that biodiversity if you're intentional with what you're planting.
Exactly. I manage biodiversity in my maple sugar bush as well.
I bet.
To improve the yield of the maple trees, you need a certain amount of spacing, but you don't want just the maple trees. You want other types of trees, because they add value to each other in their nutrients, and you also want other forest floor cover as well, which also adds to it holds the soil in place, and by making sure there's not runoff happening, and so you've got to match that. And sometimes you leave an old tree that may not be alive but has great big cavities in it. That's where that's where birds nest. And
the bats, you need that habitat.
So I used to call those the apartment buildings for birds, because usually there's holes in the trees that look like there's condominiums, there'd be one over top of the other. And why in old trees? Because it's easy for woodpeckers or whatever to hollow out areas in old dead trees.
Yes.
So,
Oh, that's really interesting. What sparked your interest in all of this? I think that it's always inspiring for people to kind of go back to some beginnings. And I'm just curious to hear from you. Yeah, because I'm sure there's a story there. Because like Stephen had his family.
I grew up on a farm in the eastern townships of Quebec.
You did, okay. That was
and if anybody knows the eastern townships of Quebec, you've got lots of rolling hills. You've got lots of land that wasn't broken out into fields because, well, it wasn't good enough to do that, but so they were trees. So your farm consisted of what you did with your livestock and your fields, but also consisted of what you did with your trees, making syrup, cutting lumber, etc. So it was fairly quite diversified in that regard. So pieces and parts fit together, and from there, I never quite got back to Quebec to be a dairy farmer, but I think that's probably why I do maple syrup now, is sort of paying penance for not being a full-fledged farmer at some point. Anyways, I didn't know that farming didn't include, technically, by the definition, the woodlots, and I always thought that it was all integrated as such. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah. anyways, that's why I took I had a hard time deciding whether I was going to take a degree in agriculture or a degree in forestry. And the end result was agriculture, but I kept adding forestry stuff in over time. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Have you seen some things in Westport that have inspired you in ways that are unexpected? Something you didn't have your early roots in that maybe you've branched out to do?
Well, I've had my fingers everywhere.
Okay.
I've been involved in theater. I've been involved in politics. I've been involved in several layers of various religious groups, etc. And I've been various places, but I also see each and every one of those as having alternative purposes. And so anyway, it's just, I see some theater opportunities here. Even though I'm focusing on the land stuff, even though I'm focusing on a part of tourism, I see some performance. Well, performance, there's always been performance here in Westport. The Cove, for example, music all the time in a particular setting. I see music of other types in a different setting. And I see some buildings that could possibly be multi-use for those type of things. So, yeah, I see opportunity here. It's going to take obviously people volunteering and lifting the weight, etc. So
new possibilities. Unfolding.
I also see a great other opportunity. So I'm on the land guy type of thing. How do you get there? You walk it or you cycle it. I see some pretty keen cycling opportunities here as well. We created a cycling part of the Westport Tourism Group. It's not where I get all my jazz from, so I found somebody that is championing it. I can initiate, somebody champions it. But we're one of the best locations for gravel road cycling probably in Ontario. One of the best locations. I don't know, people who do that say it's really great. Particularly to the west of Westport here, as the land gets a little more rocky, a little more rolly, and there's unopened road allowances, a lot of gravel roads. And actually, we're looking forward to putting on next spring something called a Grand Departure event, which is when you put it out to the world of cyclists, enthusiasts, particularly gravel road ones, that we're holding a grand departure at a certain point in time. So currently we're developing 3 loops, and they're loops that if you want to take the long one, it will be, I don't know, we'll figure it out when we finally develop the actual distance. It might be 75 kilometers, okay? But if you're not doing a 75, you start at the same place, and then you loop off and do the 21, or you go a bit further and then loop back and do the 45 one. The idea is at the end of this, there's a social event of some sort. And these things are all over the place, but it's within the world of cyclists anyway. So that's it's like, well, I'm learning a heck of a lot about it, but we get a lot of keen folks now saying, hey, let's do that here. We can really get stuff. And it's not a road per se cycling place. You can do that, but the outstanding piece is actually our gravel road cycling.
Really?
So
And our mutual friend Ken Visser, who Randall has got to know, who is involved with Camp Iowa.
Oh, yes.
Ken Visser is the champion of gravel biking for Westport because he does it all the time.
All over the world.
All over the world.
Yeah, he was in Vermont a couple of weeks ago. He takes off with his family and just cycles. He goes all by himself and cycles. He's been in Asia, he's been in Europe, etc. It's just like, it's the thing he does,
Isn't that amazing? And just the right person at just the right time, who knows just the right thing to get something started.
Well, he manages Camp Iowa, and guess where my farm is? They back onto each other. So it's about getting to know your neighbors.
And working with them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really neat. Wow. That's
From a road cycling perspective, I think that we should be looking at reopening, if possible. It's going to take some work. It was a rail line called the Brockville and Westport rail line. It hasn't been in existence for a long time, and some of the land may have reverted to the owners on either side of the rail line. But it's still there. The beds are still there, and that's a project to work on. And maybe don't take it all the way down to Brockville, but take it down to where the Cataract Rail Trail is, which is probably about 15 kilometers from here.
Okay.
And then they can join to the Cataraqui, which goes from all the way down in Napanee all the way up to Smith Falls. So there's rail trails around here. Yeah, you can walk them. You can cycle them as well. So,
Yes.
but none of the rail trails come straight into Westport until we create it based upon an assets here that's been underutilized for a long period. So.
Okay. I know there's something similar in Quebec where we were just recently in Mont-Tremblant with the Petit
Chemin
Chemin
du
du
Nord,
Yeah.
Petit Chemin du Nord, which is an old rail line that
It's all-
served
and it's
out of
beautiful.
Montreal and went way, way, way up to serve the colonists way up as it went up the other side of the Ottawa Valley. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. And you see the
Oh.
potential of what could be if effort was put in and the resources
Yeah,
and the
volunteers.
Yeah. And
Yeah. There is initiatives actually, because Cataraqui Trail exists, which goes, as I say, from goes west to sort of northeast. There's something called the Kingston and Pembroke, which is sort of west of Westport here. And then there's another trail, the Algonquin one, which actually forms a bit of a triangle. And the various county economic development and tourism organizations are working on improving that and marketing them as a whole. Our thought is, well, many places you don't have accommodations in the number of restaurants we do here. It's like just a little spur off the Cataraqui over to Westport. You can see a sign, Westport, food, accommodations.
Right.
And so that's why I think we need to develop that. Anyways, that's just one of the things you can work on. We can look for volunteers for. Yeah. And again, it's not just, physical, shoveling this and building that. It takes time to create the relationships, make the story so it's compelling and real,
Yes, absolutely.
not just compelling,
Yes.
and gathering the parties that have different skill sets, and so anywhere from communications expertise to design expertise to wanting to shovel gravel or use
Right.
chainsaws, whatever. It all comes together, right? But
Yeah.
it takes concept and then execution.
I know we met someone at the home show who said that there were very few places on earth like Westport.
Yeah,
He
correct.
felt that there was such a pull in terms of a destination with its natural beauty, its access to water, to trails, and then also just the community that exists here and the possibilities. So it's really exciting for us to hear that those kinds of initiatives are even being thought of and that there is a future. Because as you think about making a move to a new place, you are looking for opportunity to contribute. And I think you've made a really compelling story around all of those possibilities which are in the future, which are really exciting. How do you, if you were to sort of think about the connection to longevity, we've talked to some other people who have joined us on the podcast who have talked about their improvement of their quality of life by living in Westport, by living in Watercolour, having this opportunity to be so connected to nature. And then that blue zone term that sometimes gets floated around, which I'm a bit reluctant because I feel like we've taken our inspiration from so many places and we're building something new. And we might have some aspects that overlap with different things, whether it's the biophilic solutions that we think about in Serenbe or the blue zones that exist around the world where people do live longer. Do you see that there is an overlap in terms of wellness when you move to Westport?
I know the elements contribute to longevity. It's I think growing your own food and eating it together with other people, just being land, having your fingers in it. And I call it soil. It's not dirt. I'll teach people soil. It's a living organism. And then why get together with people to eat? Not every meal, but special occasions and this type of thing. It's camaraderie, it's opportunity to discuss. It opens up the relationships. There's a lot to that. And if there's ability to also do gardening itself is very good for the soil, it's very good for the mind, it's therapeutic. But there's certain parts of your body that also need some exercise as well, aerobic exercise, anaerobic exercise, and that's why you should be hiking, walking, whatever. So it's really, it's not magic, it's a combination of things, and people realize it's combinations. They like to stick a label on it, but we have all the ingredients. We don't need a label per se. It's we have the ingredients that can contribute to a longer life in this area. again, social isolation is one of the big challenges to mental health and other issues that relate to that, like dementia. And so you need to be connected to a community, not isolated. And you're as connected as you want to be, and there are opportunities to connect to various things. And meet people all along the way.
If you were to look forward to some other adventures within Westport and the Westport Tourism Group, aside from hiking, now you've talked about theater, do you see some more social gathering kind of places like restaurants and dining and, is that part of the conversation too?
Well, the Westport Tourism Group has a number of dimensions, and it basically was to help raise the water, to raise all ships. And the ships on the water were the restaurants, were the accommodations, etc., and trying to create a common articulation of what our attributes were here in Westport. And that's coming together nicely. We're doing a lot of the initiatives to raise the water, so the ships will survive and prosper. And we're seeing a lot of things happening now, from people improving their buildings, people buying old buildings and making them into businesses, etc. It will help revive Westport as a tourist spot. It never disappeared. I think we can improve it, and it's going to be improved by people who are living here, and taking that extra pride, working around similar thematics and moving forward on it. Now, one of the things we are deficient in at the moment is somebody to champion the water side of tourism here. Yes, we have a harbor, but it could be so many things that could be done to make that experience on the water much better here in Westport. It's good, but it could be much better. And it's going to take some deliberate and committed leadership and championship. And I think it's going to come from some sort of a partnership between public entities and volunteers that are private people. And I think the water piece is the next piece to move. It needs to be moved if we're going to have the full-fledged opportunities and manifest, realizing all the opportunities we have in Westport.
Okay. Because I know a lot of people certainly find it a destination on the water and come here by water as they boat the canal system. And, it's a charming little spot to come and have an ice cream or go for a walk or go to the rest, go dining and stay overnight. Even if you don't have an overnighter boat, you can dock your boat there with the harbor master and get a slip for the night. So I know you have some visions too around that. You were talking at one time about even having a boat club or something here.
Yeah, and I realize many of these ideas may not even be realized in my lifetime, because just this vision of the new homes, new life, new possibilities, it's so big, but it takes a community to see these come to life.
It takes champion, and that could be plural, to mobilize others, and conceptualize, crystallize, etc., get the pieces moving, rolling. Because I've heard so many people say, oh, the harbor's undersized, there's too many weeds, there's this, there's that. Well, fine. Are you going to do something about it? And we were looking for a champion that says, I'm going to do something about it. So, and gather the resources around it. And it's not just financial resources, because if you get the mobilization of people with good plans, etc., there are various tourism grants and economic development grants that could help contribute, but they need to have some core of energy to contribute to. So, anyway.
Interesting. And do you often get over to Sand Lake?
I do.
And get in the water there, or?
Not recently.
No, not recently.
But maybe, Wafa, we should hold it there and have Randall, just like some of our guests, back for another visit.
Sounds
because, I can tell there's a lot we haven't even just scratched the surface of yet.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today on the Watercolour Westport Stories podcast. I hope that you've enjoyed your conversation or listening in on our conversation with Randall Goodfellow, who, if you are living in watercolor, you can have the opportunity to meet him. And if you're visiting Westport, you might see some things that his leadership and community spirit has touched. So if you have time to come visit us in the model home, you'll get your maple syrup on your next visit, and that'll be really fun. We'd love to see you. You can like, follow, and share this podcast on all the platforms, and send us a question, give us an idea for a new story, and we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for joining us.